Lindsay, you ready? Time being 7 o'clock, I call the Hastings City Council meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome for being here tonight. Let the roll reflect that all council members are here and a quorum has been established. Tonight we are celebrating Black History Month, and we will start with a proclamation. Councilmember Pemble.
Whereas Black History Month is celebrated to raise awareness of African American accomplishments and contributions to our society, and
whereas African Americans are part of Minnesota's story, from before it was a territory to the present, and
whereas the first Minnesota territorial census in 1857 recorded 4 African American men living in Hastings, including Robert Burns, a barber, who with Andrew Jackson Overall and J.H. Brooks worked as a community to draft a petition to further their rights to vote, which was presented to the legislature of Minnesota in 1865, and
whereas both houses of the legislature passed a bill that proposed an amendment to strike white from the suffrage provision. The amendment was adopted in 1868 by a majority of more than 9,000 votes, becoming law in Minnesota 2 years before the 15th Amendment passed nationwide. And
whereas George Daniels was an enslaved African-American man who freed himself during the Civil War by crossing battle lines to join Union troops. In the process, he and Brevet Brigadier General Leduc became acquainted and built a strong, trusting relationship. Daniels moved to Hastings, where he lived and worked alongside Leduc, married Chloe Hudson, and started a family. And
whereas the story of George and Chloe Daniels is not unique and represents other African American families that found their way to Hastings area following the Civil War, and
whereas in the early 1890s, the Curie and Wallace families organized other African American community members to establish Brown's Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church, which served as the center of religious and social activities for African Americans until it was destroyed by arson in 1907, resulting in the eventual exodus. Of African Americans from Hastings. And
whereas recent census data show that the number of African American residents in Hastings has increased in the past decade, Hastings continues to strive for racial equity to provide a healthy community for all. And the City Council has made a diversity, equity, and inclusion an important part of its work. And
whereas the importance of observing Black History Month in the city of Hastings is to acknowledge, recognize, and welcome people of African descent and their contributions to the city of Hastings, while simultaneously recognizing the justices they have endured. And
now therefore be it resolved that I, Mary Fassbender, Mayor of the City of Hastings, Minnesota, and the Hastings City Council hereby proclaim February 2024 as Black History Month in Hastings, Minnesota. Thank you, Council. Tonight we have a visitor, Violet Penman, and she will be giving us a recycling update. Welcome, Violet.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me, I'm still recovering from a cold a little bit, so apologies if I start coughing. My name is Violet Penman. I'm the Solid Waste and Recycling Coordinator for the city. I also work in a shared position with the cities of Rosemount and Farmington, so you may see my name associated with those two cities as well. Tonight I'm just going to provide a brief overview of waste and recycling in the city of Hastings throughout the year of 2023 and what plans we have for 2024. So why is it important? Why do we have recycling and solid waste programs in the city of Hastings? How does it impact you as a resident? And it's really important. It provides an easy and low-cost disposal options for problem materials such as paint, mattresses, light bulbs, batteries, things that you can't get rid of in your typical trash, and things that we don't want in our beautiful river, right? So ultimately, this helps keep the city clean, helps keep things out of ditches, helps keep the river clean, and makes it safer for your kids, yourself, and our businesses and the environment. It also helps us meet state and county waste reduction goals, and it helps keep valuable materials out of the landfill, which helps produce jobs here in Dakota County and throughout the state of Minnesota. So, what were we able to achieve in 2023? As you can see, it's a lot here. I won't go over all of these in detail, but we did have 2 free shredding events in 2023. We had a couple mattress collection coupons in partnership with Dakota County throughout 2023 to offer a reduced rate for residents to make it a little bit more affordable to get rid of that. And overall, we diverted a grand total of 12.8 tons from the landfill. So great job, Hastings and Hastings residents. That's a lot of stuff that we kept out of the landfill. And we were also able to educate about 543 people about the importance of waste and recycling and how to get rid of certain things if people have questions. And that doesn't include the many phone calls and emails that I get and social media comments that I answer. So I'm always happy to answer those questions and help you find a good way to get rid of what you need to get rid of. So we also have a lot of other programs that aren't mentioned here, either in partnership with Dakota County or, for example, our battery and bulb collection bin for residents in City Hall, which I know people like to utilize, which is a great opportunity since Hastings is the farthest city from the recycling zone. So always happy to help out with that. One thing I will note, I put 300 bulbs for string lights that were collected. I would probably say that's closer to 700 pounds. We got a kind of a last push at the last end of 2023. So great job, you guys, getting those recycled. So what do we have planned for 2024? A lot of it will stay the same. I'm excited to do crash courses, which Councilmember Pemble attended last fall, which was great. If you have any questions about how do I get rid of this, or where does my recycling go, or how do I compost in my backyard, that would be a great place to get those sort of things answered. Probably the most exciting for residents is that we will be taking mattresses and box springs at our spring and fall events. We used to just take paper. Now we will also be taking mattresses at a cost of $30 per item. So that's a lot more affordable than getting rid of that through other methods. So that's exciting for residents. Another exciting thing is that we'll be offering back of house organics collections, so not open to the public, but for vendors at Rivertown Days, if they have extra lettuce or stuff, that won't be going to the landfill anymore, that will be going to a compost site. Another exciting thing is we'll be having a swap event in 2024. We had a swap event last year, it was very popular. This year we'll be doing outdoor winter clothing, which is our most popular swap. Great way to get rid of stuff that is still good, but you maybe don't want any more: winter boots, hats, mittens, and maybe find something new to you. And of course, we'll be having our pumpkin collection and holiday light collection. Those are very, very popular. We get lots of pumpkins and holiday lights every year. So things to look forward to. And if you're wondering about any of these events, when they are, how to get more info, feel free to go to the city website and just type in recycling events, and you can find more details there. All right, so keep it short for everyone's time today here. My info is up on the screen. Always feel free to contact me if you have any questions or concerns or just need to get rid of a mattress or couch or something. I'm always happy to help. That's my job. So any questions before I leave here? No?
Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you. Thank you, Violet. Yeah. Say, I was wondering, if there were any follow-up plans that are underway for utilizing the information that was collected during the business recycling inventory that was, conducted. I know that there was a report, but it didn't necessarily say any next steps or how the information was being used.
Yeah, so we did do a waste sort this past August, I believe it was, with businesses in the city of Hastings. So the city is closely bound with Dakota County and Dakota County regulations, including Ordinance 110. We would certainly love to work with Dakota County to educate businesses a little bit more, I think is kind of what the report came out with. I was hoping for a little bit more concrete details beyond just educating businesses and providing very specified labels, but I think that's probably how we'll be working with Dakota County going forward. Everything has to go through Dakota County first before coming through the city, so it takes a village to get that done, so.
What do you mean by that it has to go through the county?
Yeah, so everything, I'm funded through Dakota County, all of my funding. All of the landfills around here pay taxes, and that goes to waste reduction services such as this. So all of the labels per Dakota County Ordinance 110 have to reach certain labeling standards, the correct colors, the correct images, so that they look the same throughout the county, so it's easier for residents to determine what goes where. So for those specified labels, they'll need to be specified, go through Dakota County, and then come back to the city. So it's a process.
Well, I would just advocate for the sharing of the information with our local Chamber of Commerce. They do have avenues to disperse information to their membership, and I would encourage you to reach out to Christy Barse, who is our executive director of that organization, and to see what it is you can provide as services to our chamber businesses to help, with education and because there were some, interesting pieces of information that were gathered in there, and so I think that if you could highlight those and provide that information, honestly, I championed, the grant that came to our city so that we could help fund your position. And it was always my hope that we would have the ability to have more, strategic coordinated messaging, going to our residents and also our businesses. And so I appreciate the things that you've been doing and that you've been getting your legs under you and figuring out which way's up probably. But it would be really great, to see if there were action steps, for the short term and the long term, and how it is that more education is going to be done with those audiences within our city so that we can start making a greater difference. So just something for you to think of. I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything like that, but I just think that there's a lot of opportunity for education. And Tennis has been a great local partner with our city. I've been super pleased with everything that they've done. And so I see that you're that cherry on the sundae. And so whatever we can do to help do with better outreach, that would be just fantastic.
Yes, it's always great to have suggestions. It's sometimes difficult working with 3 cities. Sometimes chambers aren't as effective as the one in Hastings, so that's a great suggestion and an avenue to go forward. I would love to send that out to the chambers. So yeah, great steps moving forward. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you, Violet.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Councilmember Fox.
Thank you, Mayor Mary. Something that we're going to talk about a little later in the economic development update is open to business. And I'm curious, through your role being designated by the county, how you do or do not yet work with that program. I know just being a small business owner, I worked with Open to Business, and it was incredibly helpful. And they actually pointed us in the direction of a Dakota County grant about recycling, and that was a really helpful way for us to start our spent grain waste disposal. So we have really had great success working with the county on recycling materials out of a manufacturing facility. So can you speak, Violet, a little bit to how you do or do not work with Open to Business?
So usually the business aspect of waste and recycling falls to Dakota County. I'm usually more of the resident sort of liaison between the city and the county. But like you mentioned, there are definitely grants available that we should make available to the Chamber of Commerce, or at least notify them through Dakota County. And I don't know if that's where you heard about the grant through, but always good to get the word out there. They are great grants, but more or less, I don't really get the ability to work with businesses that much. Yep.
Great. That just maybe could be the
Yep, the lost link there.
the connection, right? So
Yep,
thank you so much for your information.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. Any other discussion? Thank you, Violet.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for having me.
We appreciate it. Council members, are there any corrections to the January 16th meeting? Okay, council members, nope, sorry. At this time, we will have comments from the audience. And at this point, we have Zoom option, or we have people in the audience that if you'd like to speak to the council at this time, you may step forward. Please state your name and your address. Anyone wish to speak at this time?
Well, thank you, Your Honor. My name is Joe Balsanic. Address is 340 Crestview Drive, Hastings. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the council. A couple of personal notes, if I may. Councilmember Fulch, I'm very sorry to see you leave the city council. You have done some very, very nice things, and I enjoyed working with you while you were on the council, while I was on the council too. I thought we were a pretty good team sitting over here on the side of the dais, yeah. But I wish you well. Looks like good things are happening. And again, I'm sure the city is going to give you good recognition for everything that you've done. Thank you very, very, very much. Yeah. And Councilmember Liefeld, thank you for helping get the money for my cabin last summer. There was a snafu in paperwork going back and forth, and your bank really did help us out a tremendous amount. And I do appreciate all of that. As far as that's concerned, I'm not sure if all of you are aware, but I am on the Charter Commission for the city, and always happy to put my oar in the water and help out with some things. I think we have a meeting coming up at some point, and I look forward to doing whatever I can for the city in any capacity. And I do want to thank Dan Waticha as our city administrator. I just think that you've done a very, very nice job. I'm glad to say that I was one of the people that hired you back a few years ago, and it was well received, and you continue to amaze me, at least, as well as the rest of the city, for all of the good things that you do. There were, I'm not sure if you're all aware, but we did move out of our historic house and into a townhome where it would be safer. And so what did I do? A year and a half after I was into the townhome, I fell and broke my wrist. So bowling season did suffer because I wasn't there. So at any rate, we're really liking it. And we like the fact, there was some mention about pumpkins. Our pumpkin, which was out on the front sidewalk, got chewed up by a whole bunch of deer. And we seem to be having a lot of deer coming through the neighborhood. When I was on the council, as a matter of fact, I got a phone call one day from a resident who lived behind Tilden, And the resident was complaining because there were deer coming in and eating their hostas. And I thought, for heaven's sakes, of all the things to have to worry about as a council member, that was probably one of the more unusual things. I wanted to mention a few things here tonight, unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, as some people say. I'm going to bring up a couple of things that were done while I was on the council. These are just a few of the many, many things that we did. But Thrive was the result of a great deal of work in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Councilmember Liefeld, you worked an awful lot on that. And Councilmember Fulch, I know you did as well. That involved a great deal of public input before a resolution was finally passed. I recall a couple of meetings at the high school where we had well over 150 people attending those meetings and breaking out into different groups. And as a result, we had Thrive, which was kind of followed up on by, she was our city public relations person. Lee Sofel. Thrive involved an awful lot of work on the part of the council. One of the things that I worked very hard on, and I think it was probably the thing I'm most satisfied with for the things I did on the city council, and it took place outside of the city limits, and that was the left turn lane on 55 in Pine Bend by, I think it's Crosley or Crosby, the intersection right there. There were some very bad accidents there. There were some people killed. And I worked very closely with Margaret Kelleher, who at that time was the highway commissioner for the state of Minnesota. And Dan and I attended a meeting of different cities that she attended where we kind of talked about the things that we wanted to see happen. And she kept in touch with me on that. And the result is we have a much safer intersection as a result. Another thing that I had worked long and hard on without much success, but I'm seeing result of it now, is the speed monitors, which are up and around the city, 4th Street, 15th Street, you name it. We've got some good representation there in terms of people who are maybe not following the speed limits. And that's something that the council worked on an awful lot before we were able to get that all taken care of. And bless Dan's heart, he found some money left over from COVID. And I think that's where we ended up putting those things in. I'm mentioning all of this because there was a resolution that the council passed at their last meeting, at your last meeting, and I think you kind of missed the mark on it. I think your heart was certainly in the right place to get that resolution out there for the public, but I think the examples that I just used would have been better utilized in order to get this resolution moving forward. It was presented without any public input. Granted, there were some people at the meeting who supported it, but there have been a lot of people who have commented to me that maybe we could have done it differently rather than the way that we did. So I would encourage you to take advantage of the committee system that is part of the way the city council operates. A resolution like that probably would have been best to go to a committee. Granted, it would have taken a couple of weeks, maybe a month, to sort of sort some things out, but I think it would have had a lot more impact had you used the committee structure. When I was on the council, we had tremendous use of the committee structure, and things were vetted, negative, positive, you name it. But by the time it got to the council, everybody knew what we wanted. So I think those are good examples that you could probably utilize in the future. I'm not sure if you've gotten negative or positive feedback. I'm not here to count noses in terms of all of that. Was it really a resolution that is supported by the entire community? I don't know. I don't know. We don't know. And maybe it would be known if it had gone through a better vetting system. I think, again, it would have been a much more positive result. Yes, there have been other resolutions from other city councils, but those have been councils that have political affiliations. And we are purposely a nonpartisan city council. We do that because we need to work on both sides of the aisle to get the things that we want. The bridge, the Riverfront Renaissance, Highway 316, things of that nature were things that we dealt with in terms of politicians from both sides of the aisle. And, without naming them, I think you can probably realize who those people were. The nonpartisan end of a council is, to me, extremely important. The job of a nonpartisan council is to concentrate on civic activity, not perhaps wade into the politics. I don't think any of you would admit to being experts on foreign policy. I'm not either. I watch the news. I get both of the newspapers. Who knows what's going on out there, except the one thing that I do know is that there are experts who know a lot more about what is going on than we do. And before we wade into a political forum, I think it's very important that we look at things in a very careful way. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak to you. And again, Your Honor, great counsel. You're all doing such a nice job. I really appreciate everything that you're doing. The downtown has never been livelier. Taxes are within a good range for a city of our size. And keep up the good work, okay? Thank you very much.
Appreciate your comments. Anyone wish to speak to the council at this time? Anyone on Zoom? No one on Zoom. Okay, moving forward. Council, I would accept a motion for the consent agenda. Councilmember Fulch, Councilmember House. Discussion, council? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that is prevailed. Tonight, we have an authorization for a signature for a space needs study with CNH Architects, and this is for the fire department, and we welcome Chief Townsend with us. Welcome, Chief.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, Council. In front of you is just authorization for signature for space needs study for the fire department. One of the things identified in our study that we did in 2022 was some incremental increases in staffing. Our current fire station does not have enough space for dorms and space for that staffing to be. We currently, in the 25 budget, are doing some temporary dorm rooms that will be up in our fitness room. So this study will be looking at what types of needs we need coming into the future, what our needs are today, and what those needs could look like in the future, and hope to guide us on, can we remodel and make what we currently have fit and suit our needs versus an addition versus a different building. So using those consultants that understand what those needs are. With that agreement is $16,500, and that is a budgeted item for 2024. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Council, any discussion, comments? Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief, I'm really excited to see that you're bringing forward this needs assessment for your department. I think it's past due, and I'm looking forward to, well, I won't be on the council when it gets back, but I'm looking forward to hearing more and knowing that your needs are going to be met, in the upcoming years, and that we can actually budget and be more proactive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Councilmember Fox?
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief, we have had a lot of conversations over the past couple years about increasing staffing at the firehouse, and it has come to fruition, and we're still bringing it to fruition. Along with that conversation, we did have conversation about space needs. So thank you for bringing this to us. We knew it was coming because we discussed it a few years ago. And we need to retrofit and make sure that we have or build, I don't know, we'll see what they say. But we need to make sure that we have the space that our incredible fire department needs. So I would like to move the approval of the agreement.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. And Councilmember Liefeld seconds. New or additional discussion, Council? Councilmember Liefeld?
Thanks, Your Honor. Chief, I just want to kind of add on to this when we've had these conversations and some of the things that people don't realize, right? And when we talked about the shower situation alone, that there's a regulation, is that the right word, of the amount of time a firefighter has to shower after attending a fire event.
Yep. One of the big things with going and doing the activities that we do at a fire, there's a lot of carcinogens, and one of the things that is killing firefighters later in their careers or after their careers are over is cancer. It's a 3 times greater rate than the general population. So the standard is to shower within the hour. And currently, we have a number of staff, but we have 1 shower in the men's locker room and 1 shower for the women's locker room, and both of those groups are growing.
And thanks for giving those numbers, because I just wanted people to hear that. It's, nice fancy new things would be great. The fact that you're trying to work with the city and the community and find a way, the location, we love the location, right? And to make it work, but understanding the importance of the safety behind your firefighters is just, I found that just to be very interesting, during our committee meetings, and definitely will support this going through, but wanted people to understand what this is about. And there is a piece to it, too. We want to attract firefighters, right? We want people to come to Hastings. Are we the biggest, prettiest, best-looking firehouse in the area? Not necessarily. But we want to be able to provide them with all of the comforts, right, that make them want to stay. So thanks, Chief, for your great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. There is a motion and a second. Additional discussion? None? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. That motion prevails. Good luck, Chief. We also have an authorization for a signature for agreement with Hideaway Shooting Range LLC, and we have an update from our Chief of Police, Chief Wolski. Welcome.
Mayor, City Council members, thank you for this opportunity. We're seeking approval to to go into a contract with Hideaway Gun Range. So in the police department, in law enforcement, we have mandated training that we have to attend every year, and that is at the shooting range, it's less lethal weapons, it's defensive tactics, taser, things like that. We used to have a contract with Hideaway. We realized there was a gap because we couldn't fulfill all those training obligations, so we started going to Hero Center in Cottage Grove, a beautiful facility. It's really not financially available for us to go there multiple times a year. So we go there twice a year, and we satisfy all our post-required training, and that's our police officers' standards and training that holds our license. But there is a need to have additional days at the range, and that's why we are asking that we enter in a contract in addition to Hero Center with Hideaway Gun Range. The contract would be $2,535 a year, and that is unlimited use of that range as long as it's available. It's an outdoor range, and it's a minimal cost, and we can get more training time in. When we hire new officers, oftentimes we have to kind of beg, borrow, and steal with another police department that might have a range so we can qualify that officer. And this would negate that. This would give us that opportunity to go to Hideaway Gun Range for our training needs. And I
Thank
will.
you, Chief.
Thank you.
Council, any discussion? Councilmember House?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would just like to say thank you so much for working so hard on being budget-friendly with this, too, and really coming down to it. I think it's great to see that we're utilizing both spaces as well still, because I love still giving up to local businesses, so congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember House. Councilmember Fulch?
Your Honor. I just wanted to ask about the location of this. This is like, where is this located? Is it out, it's on the south end of town, correct?
Yeah, it's near
Right.
Afton.
Near Afton? In south of Hastings, or is it up in Afton?
It's north, yeah.
Oh, it's
It's in
north?
Afton.
Oh, it's up in Afton, okay, because I was
Correct.
wondering where it was, and I couldn't figure it out, and I can't get it to pull up. It must be really hidden away, because I can't find a website for it, but that's great. I'm sorry to hear that the Hero Center is not cost prohibitive for our police department, because that was, largely paid for by state bonding funding, if I remember correctly, that there was a big, public subsidy that was given to the city of Cottage Grove for that, and so they don't offer better pricing for other police departments, or I'm just curious about, that
Yeah,
it's
my-
so costly.
My understanding is the Hero Center offered for law enforcement agencies to go in on the cost, the original cost.
Okay.
And then you would have priority and you'd have, reduced rates. We didn't take advantage of that at the time. The funding wasn't there, so we have to pay the regular rate. And for a full day at the Hero Center, it's $2,500 a day. So we budget for 2 days a year, and that satisfies all our training requirements. But officers need more than 1 day at the range per year. And I say 2 days because we split the shifts up so we can still cover the street.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this gives them the ability to go out there on a more regular basis, like what, once a week, or?
No, we wouldn't be able to shoot once a week, but we would include between 3 and 4 additional shoots throughout the year. And we'd utilize vehicles because it's an outdoor range, so we have some movement drills, just a little bit more flexibility.
Okay, that's great. I think Mayor Mary, you need to go talk to that mayor of Cottage Grove. See what
I'll
you
get
can
right
do.
on that.
All right.
Thank you, Councilmember
Thank you,
Fulch.
Chief.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Fox?
Thank you, Your Honor. I too clarified, so the post-required training will still happen at the Hero Center,
Correct.
and then anything outside of that will happen at Hideaway. And would we be able to have just shooting range availability for our officers? I think that's kind of where Councilmember Fulch was going too, if they're just off for a day, could they go and practice their marksmanship then too? I don't know, just curious.
They can always do that at a public range. They wouldn't be able to go to Hideaway because we have to have a range instructor and a safety officer there. So we would have to set that up in advance, and we would offer, like I said, those, we'll say 3 to 5 training dates that they can come in either on duty or off duty and hone their skills.
Thank you. So it's more specific to training.
Correct.
Okay, great. I move to approve the
Thank you,
contract.
Councilmember Fox. And Councilmember Lawrence. New discussion, council. All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We also have an accept a proposal and authorization work for the Industrial Park Water Tower reconditioning, and Dan Waticha will give us an update on it. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. This one is about planning ahead. In our 2025 capital improvement plan next year is reconditioning of the water tower out in the industrial park. And as you remember, a year ago, we did reconditioning on the water tower over by the high school off of 4th Street. Similar work, although the industrial park tower is larger. Our budget figure for 2025 is $1.6 million. And in our discussions with KLM, the engineering group that we worked with on the 4th Street water tower, really advisable to get moving on this now. If we get the design work done this spring, summer, go out to bid in late '24, we could have contractor lined up to start right away in the spring of 2025. And really the point is good pricing, getting the project done early in the year rather than later in the year. So that's the reason that we want to get an early start on the design now, even though it was not planned as part of the '24 budget. KLM's the same company we worked with last year. The design and bidding, which is the immediate piece for 2024, would require a $16,000 budget adjustment. That's a portion of that $1.6 million that's coming next year, but just moves it up a little bit. The contract would also encompass about $106,000 of construction observation and warranty investigation in '25 and even into '27. So future work with them under this contract. But the immediate piece is that $16,000 for design and bid here in 2024. With that, I can take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Any discussion, council? I'd ask for a motion. Yes, Councilmember Fulch.
I was going to make a motion to accept the proposal and authorize the work for the industrial park water.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Fulch, and a second by Councilmember Pemble. Discussion, council? None? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
We are also looking to accept a proposal on authorization work for the Mississippi River Bank erosion, and Dan has some update on that, along with
A little
some
bit.
slides.
Thank you. And chatting with Chief Townsend before, he advised I'm supposed to open with a joke, but he didn't, so I'm not going to either. Thanks, Chief. This is a overview map, a site view showing the location. It's that little red dot. It's in River Flats Park. Obviously, it's along the Mississippi River across from Lake Rebecca. The upcoming photos are a bit more interesting. But we've had significant erosion here, and it's going to undermine the trail that's immediately adjacent to it. This is more of a example showing the area of it. It's about 0.13 acres. It's about 100-foot linear along the riverbank. But as you can see here, it is significantly eroded with the flooding that we had this past spring. We've got up some temporary fencing to deter people from it, but that obviously doesn't fix the problem. We have investigated state and federal grants, which either we're flat out not eligible or strongly advised. It's a lot of work for something you're very unlikely to get. So at this point, we're looking at not having grant funding. I do know that our Parks Director, Chris Jenkins, is encouraging Dakota County to have some sort of cost share, since the trail is part of their trail system, and we'd like to see it protected. It's adjacent to the Riverfront Trail. The proposal is for permitting and design work by Bar Engineering. The amount is $27,300, which would require a budget amendment. We were hoping for grant funding for this and ran out of budget time on it. Estimates of the work would be 500 tons, 300 cubic yards of riprap, as well as 200 tons of filter materials. It would comply with Army Corps of Engineers standard permitting requirements. It would not increase the floodplain elevation, would not disturb wetlands above the ordinary high water level. Construction and engineering is estimated about $140,000. So before you tonight's just the engineering piece, about $27,000. Subsequently, after that's done, a month, 2 months from now, some additional conversations with the county. I expect we will be back asking for another budget amendment to do the work and protect that riverbank. But with that quick overview, I can take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Council, any questions? Councilmember Fox?
Thank you, Your Honor. Dan, I share the frustration that we weren't able to work through the state of Minnesota to fix some of this. That's been kind of a long journey over the last year, and it's just not
Yeah.
come to fruition.
We were hoping, but it really didn't meet the criteria.
Yeah. I think it is our prerogative to work with Dakota County as much as possible. And in however we all can be supportive of that, please let us know. My question, the memo says that it will occur after spring flooding, the construction, if we do move forward with this as soon as possible. Do you know, it says bid package delivery for May 3rd. So does that mean it will conclude by May 3rd of 2024?
I know I said that I could stand for any questions, but I don't have the full memo in front of me.
Sorry.
My anticipation or my understanding was that moving on this now, the work could be completed ahead of any flooding that we might see this spring.
Oh, great. Okay.
With limited snow, I don't know that the waters will be the same this year as we've seen in the past.
Certainly.
But I'm puzzled by the reference to May 3rd. I'm not sure what
Okay.
that reference is.
No problem. I'm encouraged to see that it could happen within the spring of 2024.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Fox. Councilmember Layfield?
Thank you, Your Honor. Dan, so are we doing this erosion project only because of the trail?
The trail's a big part of it. I think also just a general safety, that seeing the eroding away, the sloughing off of the river, the side of the river there in proximity to the trail and park. But it is there is definitely a concern about it undermining infrastructure, undermining the trail.
Excuse me, got a tickle in my throat. And then how close do barges get at that particular spot when they come in, turn in? Is that do we have any information on that? Is any of this the result of that traffic?
I cannot answer that.
It just looks so interesting to me how that particular spot, right? Why that particular spot is eroding and holding all the logs from you can see that picture that you showed there. So just kind of curious if there's any other avenues that we could look at based on the proximity to the dam, based on the fact that the barge traffic that travels through here. I know we've got the hard left that most of us are familiar with on the river. I don't know if this is part of that or not.
I think this is upstream of the hard left.
Further up, yeah.
If you see, it's the red dot.
Yeah,
Sorry, I don't have a scale to that, but
So I guess my only question would be if there's any barge traffic that might,
obviously they pass by, but I don't know how
Yeah,
far
close.
left and right they are from the shore there.
thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Councilmember Layfield. Councilmember House?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would just like to encourage us to continue speaking with Dakota County on this. I know that one of their goals this year was to have better connections with us as well. So I think us contacting them a little bit more about this would maybe do well for it. But one quick question I did have with this is, if the trail ends up being in any way damaged due to this, would that cost go on to the city or Dakota County by chance?
I believe under the joint powers, is there a JPA on that? I believe under the joint powers agreement we have with the county, with their taking over what had been city trail and making it part of the county system, that they have responsibility for maintaining and maintaining their infrastructure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember House. I would look for a motion then to approve the proposal from Bar Engineering. Councilmember Fulch? And a second with Councilmember Fox. New discussion, council? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Tonight we have an assessment of water service repair at 619 West 5th Street. And for this item, we have another introduction by City Administrator Dan Waticha. Dan?
Yeah. This, in one sense, is something that we do fairly often, and in another sense, it's extremely unique. We probably have 2 or 3 water service lines that we repair every year, and typically, because it can have a significant bill, $5,000 to $10,000, we'll have the residents ask if it's their responsibility, that financial cost. We'll often have the residents ask if we could have it assessed and paid over several years, and we've had a longstanding practice of doing that. So we have service line repairs 2 or 3 times every year. Actually, there was one on the consent agenda even tonight with that waiver. We also, every year, will have a number of private expenses that we certify for assessment. So as examples, if somebody does not pay their water bill, at the end of the year, we just put it on their taxes. We don't mess around with trying to do collections or shutting off water. We know where there's some leverage to make sure it gets paid. Or if a resident or business hadn't mowed their lawn or shoveled their sidewalk and code enforcement had to have that done for them, we send them the bill. If they don't pay it, we'll certify it for collection to their assessment. So the type of action is very frequent. What's unique here is the resident owning this property recently deceased. So we don't have anybody that can sign off on that waiver. In speaking with their estate, they asked that we go through the assessment process so that we can certify it, make sure that it gets paid and gets collected. In talking with legal counsel, the recommendation was go through all the formalities of the process. We can't have somebody signing a waiver saying, I don't need my right to a public hearing. So we're giving a public hearing tonight for this property. If you open the hearing, maybe that's what the crowd is here for, but I'm guessing that there's probably few comments to it. Afterwards, would recommend that you approve certification of this
Okay.
for collection. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. First, we'll have the public hearing, and then we'll have discussion of council after. At this time, I will open the public hearing for the assessment on 619 West 5th Street. Anyone wish to speak to that? Okay, anyone on Zoom? Okay, at this time, I will close the public hearing and open the discussion for council. Council, any discussion? Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Dan, just for clarification, so what we're doing is, I'm sorry to hear that the homeowner had passed away, but So the $8,500 worth of costs will then be assessed against the property, so then upon sale of the property, then the assessment will be paid? The amount will be paid, just, or is the
Correct,
city?
correct. It would be certified for assessment. I imagine that the quickest avenue would be that when the property is in some fashion sold or transferred, that would get paid. But it's possible that somebody might choose to pay it upfront or something, but most likely be upon sale.
Okay, and so, just for clarification then, that's what we are asking for at this point, is for the assessment to be against the property itself and not assessing an individual. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Okay, so first I would look for a motion to certify for collections of the assessment of $8,500 for the water service repair. Councilmember Pemble, second by Councilmember Liefeld. Discussion, council. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion, state by saying nay. Okay, secondly, then I would accept a motion to certify the collection, the assessment of $8,500 for water service repair at 619 Fifth Street. Councilmember Pemble, Councilmember Lawrence, any discussion, council? All those in favor of the motion, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion, state by saying nay, and that motion prevails as well. Thank you. Okay, under community development tonight, we have a resolution for the Walden at Hastings and the EAW negative declaration on the need for an EIS. John, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. I'm going to pull up a little bit of information on what we're doing tonight and an explanation of what we are doing and what we're not doing, Mayor. Tonight, what we're looking at is an environmental assessment worksheet, and I'll get into a little bit of definition of what that is and what it constitutes here. What your actions are tonight is to review the findings of this EAW, the Environmental Assessment Worksheet, and also acknowledge the public comments received and our response to that. The second we're asking is to adopt a resolution recording a negative declaration on need to prepare an EIS. So in English, that means that the environmental review is concluded, you're satisfied that the environmental review is complete, and we can move on from the environmental review to the actual review of components of the development itself. So what we're looking at tonight is the Walden addition. This is a property located on Highway 316 and Michael Avenue, recently annexed by the City Council and guided for development residentially in the property. Property consists of two zones, really. There is an upland portion, which is agriculture, which is proposed for development, and then the lower portion here, which is sand coulee, and that is proposed to not be developed. This is a site of natural interest and a site in which the developer is looking to sell the property to the DNR for further protection, similar to what we have to the north. What we have proposed on the property, and this isn't what proposed tonight, but a development proposal brought forward by Land Equity Development, is the development of this property into about 511 units. That's what's stated in the EAW itself. We further had clarification through a preliminary plat application that would be somewhere around 450 units. The development itself is located on the upland area of the property. It consists of a variety of different types of units, from single-family, twin home, townhome, apartment, and senior development. So let's go back to the EAW. What is that? It lays out the basic facts of a project to determine if this EIS is necessary. It goes through the review of certain specific items of review and gives people the opportunity to comment on them. It identifies a way to protect the environment upon development. What it generally does is the comments that are received here, if the conclusion is made that the environmental effects are not substantial enough to prevent the development, provides ways for that development to mitigate those effects as we go through different development applications. That's not part of what we're doing tonight, but it provides the guideline through the EAW to do so. I think the important part to recall tonight is this does not approve or deny the project. This is an environmental assessment of the environmental effects, not anything to do with the map I just showed earlier. I guess I have this on here twice. Development not approved tonight. What will happen with this? I know people are interested in what might happen with development on the property. Upon the EAW and upon action by the council tonight, there would be an application brought forward for various land use actions, including a comprehensive plan amendment for the type of housing to be put there, rezoning of the property to change the legal land use, and what we term a preliminary plat, which is the subdivision of the property into lots, blocks, streets, and so forth. That is a separate process. Application has been made by the developer. We are reviewing the application. We are still waiting for a few items to complete that. Once that is completed, then we will have a public hearing before the Planning Commission on those. Public will be invited to that meeting and have opportunity to comment on there. And that'll eventually go to council. And then there'll be another step after that. Once specific housing components want to be constructed, there's site plan approvals and final plat approvals that would take place. Bottom line is there's a couple of different opportunities for people to be involved and to comment on the specific elements of the project tonight. So what we're focused on tonight is the environmental assessment portion of it. So within that EAW, we provided this copy for distribution to the council back in December of last year. Established a 1-month comment period, which is established under state law. Had comments received by 13 parties. Some of these are residents surrounding the property. Some of these are other state agencies. The comments that have been received are within your packet itself, as well as the response to that. I should note that the responses were drafted by SEH, who is the developer's engineer, and reviewed internally by staff. There was changes that we made as staff to make sure that we were in line with what we thought were correct responses and with some of the original EAW formation here to make sure topics were covered on that. So within the EAW comments, a few themes came forward, and what we call these are areas of concern. Now, I'll state that the areas of concern are not necessarily things that we see as staff that would prohibit the development to occur from an environmental standpoint, but more things that should be taken into consideration within the future development approvals. One of these being a location of a refuse dump that Dakota County has shown on the property. We'll need to get that cleaned up. If there's environmental effects which seem, those seem quite likely on that, we would have to take care of that, or the developer would have to take care of that. Estimate of wastewater volume that was provided on some further clarification in the reporting. Stormwater infiltration, certainly a concern that we want to make sure stormwater infiltration may occur here, and that would be done when we go forward with the actual stormwater management plans when the plat comes forward. So great guidance on that. We had a natural heritage letter that the DNR offered forward on species and what to do if species are found specifically on the site. So the developer would be responsible for mitigating anything that would happen there. Also, a suggestion for consultation with tribal historic preservation officers from the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council. Developer's engineer has reached out to various tribes that may have had activity within that area. We're not aware of anything specifically that might be found there, but we're doing our due diligence to make sure that there isn't. If there is something that's found there, perhaps during the development or through some information that comes back in the future, there are specific rules that the developer would need to follow in order to mitigate for that and to potentially change development because of that. Also, the cultural research management plan falls along with that as well, and then this Phase 1A literature review for archaeological assessment. These all pertain to any pre-European settlement or activities that may have occurred on the property there. So there's specific rules that are outlined there that if things are found, that they would have to be mitigated within the site. And frankly, it's within the developer's best interest at this point to get that done prior to getting far along on the development of the property, just in case there's mitigation things that do occur. So those are the items that we received within there. Specifically within your report are the letters themselves from individuals and the response that SEH put together along with the city of Hastings. So again, I'll put your attention back to the actions that we have here tonight. One is to review the environmental assessment worksheet. and to consider the declaration, the negative declaration for need for EIS. Staff recommendation on that is to move forward with the negative declaration. We do not believe that there's been anything that has been found within the environmental assessment at this point that would warrant further investigation under an EIS, and we are comfortable that the information that has been presented in the EAW can be used as guidelines for development with the property itself. I should note that joining us via Zoom tonight is the developer's engineer, Carrie Franklin. She also assisted in putting together the EAW report. So I can stand for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Council, any discussion? No discussion. Councilmember Fox.
Thank you, Your Honor. John, thank you for clarifying. What was the big headline? No development decisions are being made based on the EAW. I just wanted to say that again. We are looking into this as a potential development, and we wanted to make sure that the soil was ready to build on and safe to build on. We are not moving forward right now with any development because we've never seen a final plan. It has not come before planning. It has not come before council. And we are still looking for input from our community on that forthcoming. So I move to approve the resolution. Is that the first step, Madam Mayor? Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Councilmember Fox. And Councilmember Liefeld. Additional discussion, council. All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Tonight, we have a resolution to convey property to Hedra, the southwest corner of Pleasant Drive and South Frontage Road. And for this item, we will have an introduction by Community Development Director John Hinsman. You may continue.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. Upon the screen here is about a 4-acre property located at the southwest corner of South Frontage Road and Pleasant Drive. Highway 55 is just to the north, Westview Mall to the east, and then Hastings Marketplace Townhomes just to the west of McCullough School. This property is owned by the city, and it was conveyed to the city back in 1968 as public land to be held forever. Upon our research, we were not able to determine specifically what the purpose of this land was to be dedicated to the future. We've had some inquiries on the development of this property over time. We did work with our legal team to determine whether the city would be in a position to sell the property if we chose to do so. Under state law, there are certain provisions for what public land dedicated forever means, and what we concluded is that there is a 30-year limit upon that. So the ability for us to sell the land began in 1998, and we could consider offers to it. So we met with the Planning Committee of City Council to review that. Is this something that we would see as a public use that we want to hold on to? Or would we want to consider a private sale of this property for future development? We looked at this property along with, another similar property just to the north. The conclusion by the Planning Committee, which was Chair Fox and Fulch and Liefeld, was that this property here to the north, we'd like to hold on to, work with Dakota County to see if there's a potential use for them next to the library. But the property here to the south was not really a determination of public use and something that we wanted the full council to consider at this point. So the action we're looking for tonight by the council is to convey the property to Hedra. The reason we'd be looking for the conveyance is that Hedra is the proper body to look at private property sales. There's certain powers that Hedra has that the city council doesn't, that would be more beneficial for the sale of property. And it's really, we look at our development authorities when we're doing these private transactions, these cash types of transactions. So what we're asking for is to convey the property to Hedra. Now, looking at a couple of analysis for the property, The big question for the council is really, do you see a future public use for the property? If you do, you potentially hold on to it. If you don't, there is a potential party here who would seek to purchase the property, develop the property, and put in a national retailer on that site. The details of that would be something that HEDRA as a body would review, and I've got that scheduled right now for this Thursday's meeting. No final action by HEDRA at this point, but if the council was amenable to the consideration, to the transfer, HEDRA would meet to review terms with the developer and then provide direction to just draft a purchase and development agreement for future action by HEDRA. So really looking at that. If I take a look at this from a land use standpoint, it's an interesting site when you drive by it. It's a low site, it has stormwater drainage within it. So the initial question that comes forward is, can this property be developed? It's going to be a little challenging. The stormwater drainage that comes into the site right now would need to be still contained within the site. So the developer would have to not only contend with the existing stormwater in the site, but also the new stormwater that would be generated from development of the site. So they are aware of that, and that is something that would be their responsibility to do. Would need a couple of land use changes for this property from the comprehensive plan and rezoning. When you take a look at the other properties here, you'd have commercial properties directly to the east and then to the north as you go to Highway 55. So it's in keeping with the type of development that's in the area. Again, with those type of land use approvals, that is something that the Planning Commission and the City Council would hold public hearings on and take action at a later date. So we are not construing anything for future land use with the conveyance to HEDRA tonight. The other thing is looking at commercial land along Highway 55 in this part of the city. There isn't a lot available right now. You got a couple of properties over by Walmart that owned by Nick and Zemius. Other than that, there's not a lot of land within the corridor. So this land becomes of more value for development here. So action we're asking for tonight is to convey the property to HEDRA, and then HEDRA would look at the terms, come to agreement, purchase and development agreement in the future, and then any land use approvals would again come back to the council. So I can stand for any questions.
Thank you, John. Council, any discussion? Okay, Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. During our planning committee of the council meeting, I had shared, and I just want to publicly share again, that I'm concerned about the 12th Street West, close to McCullough there, that if this parcel is provided to HEDRA, I just want it noted that I feel pretty strongly that we shouldn't allow any exiting of any potential commercial use there onto 12th Street. So because there's a lot of kiddos and families who are moving during, the school, before and after the school hours. And so I think that it would behoove us to keep a safe traffic corridor there and not have a lot of in and out occurring on that section of the roadway. And so I feel that it's a good use of, that parcel to see commercial development there. It would be wonderful if we could see Westview Mall get spurred on by, additional businesses that are in the area, especially if they're successful. And so I would rather see this, be used as commercial development rather than, high-density residential or something to that effect. And so I support the resolution, and I'll make a first motion, thank you, to be supportive of this with that caveat that access not be allowed on the 12th Street. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Fulch, and thank you, Councilmember House, for seconding it. New discussion, council? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Aye opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. Thank you, John. Tonight, under administration, we have a second, sorry, did I miss something? Oh, sorry, Sorry, John.
It's okay.
John is going to give us a community development report.
Thank you, Mayor, City
Thank you,
Council
John.
members. So wanted to give a highlights of the Community Development Annual Report that's within your packets. I'll also have this shortly on the website to share with others as well. I think it's good to recap some of the activities that we've been involved in as the council, the commissions, and the achievements that we've had over the last year or so, and to highlight a few of those. I'm going to start by saying, when we look at the Community Development Department, what exactly is that? It is the city planning, economic development, historic preservation, building inspection, code enforcement. So basically, anything related to private planning and development of things within the city, that's what we're involved in here. We also serve the Planning Commission, HEDRA, the Hastings Economic Development and Redevelopment Authority, and the Heritage Preservation Commission with their activities as well. So we take a look at what happened last year. We had 207 new residential homes, which totaled nearly $30 million in valuation. Wonderful to see that increase. There was a long period of time in which we did not see that. We'll go through some of those specific developments here in a moment. From a commercial and industrial development side, we had 78 permits that came forward for development commercially with $38 million in valuation there. So strong year for that as well. We also had a lot of changes internally within the department. We added some members. There was transfer of members to other positions. And I think within the department, over half the people there were either new or transferred to new positions within 2015. So there was a lot of stuff that happened within there. So let's take a look what we did. Under construction, these are some great pictures here. Lake Isabel Flats on 3rd Street, 89 apartment units downtown. Something that we have been wanting to do for many years with the UBC property is under construction as we speak. Vermilion Acres Senior Project at County Road 47, modular development there, 75 units of senior development, assisted living, and memory care. That's going forward. Back up Lake Isabel Flats, I've heard is going to be, as taking leasing, should be opened up in the spring. Vermilion Acres is not going to be far behind that. We look at current 33 next to Coburn's. Building number 1 is open and leased out, 104 units. Building number 2, 107 units under construction and well under construction right now, which is great. We had some commercial development with KFC coming on Vermilion Street, improvements to Regina Assisted Living, and then Heritage Ridge and our other housing developments continued construction as well. So this is when we take a look at permits from year to year on that one. So we had 207 building permits last year for new construction, 182 apartments, 24 single-family homes on that one, down slightly from last year where we had 33 single-family and 195. The 264 we had last year was the largest year we'd had in 15, 20 years. So these are 2 large years that we've had with development approvals and apartments going in residential construction. With the commercial permit side, this is interesting too. We had about as many commercial permits as we had last year, but the valuation is significantly larger. We had a lot more high-value projects that went forward this year, so great investment within the community. Within our Planning Commission, we reviewed a number of items. The Walden and Hastings concept plan was reviewed by Planning Commission. There was neighborhood meetings held last year for that as well. They looked at the law enforcement center and also an auto garage over on Lightbourne Court for new construction. South Oaks 4th Edition, which is a project that we have been looking for approval on for many years, did gain approval last year. This will add 35 new single-family home lots near 31st Century Drive. So looking forward to that coming to fruition. One thing kind of behind the scenes that we spent a lot of time on and we're proud to finally be completed with is our Mississippi River Critical Area Plan. This is an ordinance that protects lands within the Mississippi River corridor, and frankly, something we've been working on for over 20 years. So we're finally getting to the conclusion of that. It is great. We approved a special use permit for Thorwood Mansion for them to allow a first floor gathering space. We're looking forward to the construction concluding on that property and the utilization of that. This is a diagram here showing permits over the last 15 years. You can kind of see where we're at here and where we've been, which is a lot higher. We didn't see numbers this high since about 2003 on a housing permit standpoint. Land supply we're doing good at. We go through and we take a look at what we have existing, where people could build a house tomorrow, planned lot inventory where certain approvals are necessary but not that far away, and then looking out at what we have on the edges of the city. We've got a lot of land available right now for construction and development. HEDRA is another important facet of what we do here in the Community Development Department in Hastings. The biggest thing that I'm most proud of last year is the confluence finally coming to fruition after 14 years. That took a long time. There was a lot of patience from Hedra, a lot of patience from the council to get this project going. But the results of having the 77-room hotel, Missy's Sip and Savor, Chamber of Commerce, the riverfront space is wonderful. And it's really a testament to the commitment of Hedra and this body to come forward and to stay with the project, which at times, frankly, looked like it may not happen. But wonderful to see it go. And we had a lot of great help from development partners and $4.8 million in grant funding to help pave the way for different things that happen there. I talked a little bit about Lake Isabel Flats. There are certain things in which the city is involved in more as a regulator and one more where it's helping with development. I really look at Hedra's role in development is being involved when the private market cannot or will not because of cost or environmental implications. So really, we're taking care of some of the most difficult projects that the private market just can't find profitable. So when we look at this UBC lumberyard, we wanted to get the lumberyard out of downtown. We wanted to get the industrial off the riverfront. These are goals that we had over the year. This at Lake Isabel Flats goes back to 2006 when we purchased UBC lumberyard, moved them to the industrial park, and tried to get to a position that the market would be set for development of residential, and it was last year. So we established a tax increment finance district on that to assist with that, and this is the largest apartment building to date in downtown Hastings. So between Lake Isabel Flats on the east end, the Confluence on the west end, there's a lot of impact positively among downtown that'll be happening for 2023 into 2024. What we're working on right now is another big project is what we term Block 28. So to the average person, that is the area that is on the west side of 61 between 4th Street and 5th Street. It's essentially the gateway into Hastings that is greeted right now by a closed Rivertown Liquors, a closed Country Nights, and a few other commercial buildings on the block. Last year, we did acquire 2 properties. We acquired Dick's Barber Shop at 418. You may say, hey, Dick's Barber Shop is still operating. They are. We had a lease on that property back to Dick's and the residents that were there so they could continue operation over the next couple of years while we cement the site. We also acquired a house across the street from the fire station as well. So we're in a position now with this block that we have acquired almost half the properties on the block, and we're hopeful to prepare something similar to what you see in the bottom corner, which comes from our Vermilion Street plan of 2018, in which we'd have a mixed-use development, commercial and residential, and really a great welcoming point for people as they enter into Hastings. So that is something we actively are working on and are looking forward to more success here in the future. We have a facade improvement grant program that we run as well that provides $50,000 annually for individuals within the downtown and Vermilion Street to do exterior renovations. And we also have a 2-to-1 grant match on that. So we gave out $20,000 last year. We got $61,000 in new investment, which is wonderful. This is just one example here with Hastings Family Service downtown. We also have some other business programs that we have as well. And I think Councilmember Fox mentioned Open to Business earlier tonight. This is a wonderful program that we have. We can't trump it enough. It's something where we spend limited amount of funds on in association with 10 other communities within Dakota County. They provide free one-on-one guidance and loans for existing and potential entrepreneurs. The person we have running the program, Natalie Musso, is wonderful at answering questions and being available. They met with 15 businesses, 11 residents last year, and throughout their gap financing program, they provided $230,000 in gap financing, which leveraged $591,000. So the loans that they provided to 2 Hastings businesses last year gave those amount of investment, which is great. We're also working on our shovel-ready site in the industrial park, marketing that, and then Hastings Market, Makers Market last year. We moved from the alleyway down to the river flats, and we had much more success, and we're looking more to that next year. So I want to mention our Heritage Preservation Commission as well. Looking at the historic fabric of our city. They reviewed permits for 15 different buildings last year. They presented preservation awards to recognize achievement, which is always a fun exercise. And they've been working behind the scenes and microfilming newspapers, having microphone newspapers being digitally scanned. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of some of the activities we've had in community development this year, and I can stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Great, great update. I mean, I'm so thankful with everything that's going on. I think the community is happy to see development in housing, different types of housing, you know, commercial, and futuristically, how Hedra is stepping up and seeing these properties and how they could visualize them in the future. So great forecast for right now and great forecast for the future. So, any discussion, council? Council member? Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, John. Now we have a second reading and adoption for the ordinance amendments for lawful gambling. And we will have an introduction by our Assistant City Administrator, Kelly Murtaugh. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm going to quick just pull up a document here in case we need it for reference. That's okay.
There you go.
Thanks. I just wanted to call it up here, just in case we need it for reference. Mayor, council members, as you may remember, in April of 2023, several amendments to the lawful gambling ordinance were proposed, and they were increasing the trade area spending. It is currently 50%, but that proposal proposed an increase to 75%. There was a proposal to initiate a charitable contribution fund, implement the annual renewal process, and require that for documentation that organizations submit a replica of whatever is sent to the state for their gambling documentation. As you may also remember, there was a significant amount of feedback from the charitable gambling organizations in the city about the increase, specifically about the increase in the trade area spending from 50 to 75%, and the introduction of the charitable contribution fund. Following public feedback and discussion with council, council decided to table that first reading. So that's what happened back in April. Now we're going to fast forward to recently. An updated first reading came before you on January 16th, so just a few weeks ago, which retained only the implementing of the annual renewal process from the April amendment or ordinance amendment, and the associated fees, as well as the reporting requirement to just replicate state documents to be submitted to the State Gambling Control Board. There was feedback at the January 16th council meeting, and certainly some feedback since that meeting, some of which I'll address here and may have been addressed already in the memo. One edit that was made to the original first read document, and I can show you this. Which was highlighted by public feedback related to the timing of the renewal of document submission within the annual licensing period. This was very helpful feedback, and this was not helpful to those renewing their licenses. So it was helpful, and we have proposed that that date be removed from the first reading. To help you understand the process, much like other license renewals, renewal information is sent out to renewing organizations or businesses, as other licenses may be the case, well in advance of the due date to help facilitate then the movement of that licensing process through the deputy city clerk, who collects all of the documentation and then moves it along to council for approval in advance of the deadline date, so that folks are renewed in the timeline as laid out in the ordinance. If there are delays to that process, then that might be because there was a delay in submitting the documentation, but we don't want to be the cause of that. So that's kind of the process of how we work that through and why we selected to remove that March 31 date. Option A in your packet, as I'm showing here on the screen, reflects the original first reading, just taking out this date. So everything that came before you in the first reading appears in option A. Now, also sparked by comments, and I'll move through these here. Also sparked by comments from the January 16 first reading and the guests that joined us here in council chambers, there was a request for council to consider allowing state and federal taxes paid by organizations to be recognized as trade area spending. So currently, organizations may not count taxes paid to the state of Minnesota or the U.S. government as trade area spending. The option B is also in your packet. And that language, there's the March 31 date we removed. And that language is here. So if council so desired, the language would say organizations are permitted to claim state and federal taxes paid as part of their 50% local trade area expenditures. Just a note, staff don't necessarily support this option as it may have unintended outcomes of reducing actual charitable spending in the trade area. Finally, one other note, there was additional feedback suggesting that the city replace the renewal investigation fee, taking that renewal fee away, and implementing a 3% local gambling tax. That is an option. It is allowed by statute that a city may choose either one or neither, but may choose either one of those options. Our proposal includes a renewal fee, investigation fee of $150 for renewals, rather than the 3% gambling tax. That tax would require significant additional staff intervention to manage the 3% gambling funds, how they're utilized, and report that to the state. And so at this point, we are not recommending that, but if council were interested in pursuing that, I would ask for time to research what that would actually look like for the city. So that is a very big picture view of what has happened since April and most recently, and I would be happy to stand for any questions about either of the two options that you have before you this evening.
Thank you, Kelly. Council, any discussion? Councilmember Liefeld.
Thank you, Your Honor. Kelly, question for clarification on that 3% tax idea. 3% of what? I mean, $150 is 3%. What is $150? That's pretty low, 3% of,
Right.
someone do the math. So what, 3% of what?
That's a great question, and I'm not prepared to answer that question at
Did
this
somebody
point.
bring that to our attention? One of the was it one of the organizations that were
Correct.
speaking?
One of the organizations sent us a communication right around the first reading, or just
Yeah.
maybe just after the first reading, and asked us to consider something like that as an alternate. Other cities do offer the 3%. I suspect it is 3% on net revenue, but I don't want to misspeak on that.
Okay, because that's like
Lisa.
how much?
It really is not if you're looking at it from a financial standpoint, it's not going to be whatever you think the math is. If we implemented the tax, it is required, there's reference to additional administrative work and tracking report to the state. It is required to be specific to overhead at the city implementing the oversight of the lawful gambling. And if there's any overpayment, so to speak, the city would have to reimburse that to the organizations. So there may be a gain, I think minimal, if we're proposing $150 per site, per organization, per site fee would cover staff time and overhead. Conceivably, if that number's low, if it's $200, it could gain us a little bit extra money and additional time to calculate it. but it's not a moneymaker if that's what you're keying on.
I was just curious. I know a little bit about numbers, and 3% of $10,000 is well over $150. So I would like to make a motion to go forward with option A as presented for an ordinance for the city of Hastings, Minnesota, repealing and replacing the Hastings City Code Chapter 110.17, lawful gambling. And just to confirm that the two things that are changing is a $150 annual fee to be submitted when they apply, because they have to apply annually. So when they apply, a $150 fee. And in addition to when they submit their data to the state gambling board, they submit that data to us as well. So there are two things changing. The main thing is $150 a year. Is that correct, Kelly?
The main thing that's changing is we're implementing a renewal process. Along with that, there's a $150 investigation fee for the renewal, and therefore then an increased fee for the initial license for the city. So I don't want that to be misconstrued.
Thank you.
So the main change is initiating a renewal process, thereby then instigating fees to go along with each of
I'd like
those.
to stand with my motion.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Lightfoot. Councilmember Fox?
I'll second that motion with a comment, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox.
Just first comment, to clarify, according to Minnesota House Research that I just Googled, the 3% tax is based on the gambling activities of the organization, so it's an annual tax on the organization. Just for your information. I very much support option A. I think we've done a lot of due diligence on this topic, and we've talked about it as a council a great deal. We've talked about it with the community a great deal, and we've received a lot of feedback on it. So I appreciate all of your willingness to adapt and change, particularly that timeline. That was a concern for many people. And I spoke with Dan earlier about the question regarding qualifications and expectations to be accepted and denied. And I really like how you mentioned this, Dan. If the organization applying and renewing their license does so, they will be accepted. If they do not submit their application, they will be denied their gambling license. So I think that's, like you mentioned, Kelly, we're not in the business of denying people's business, right? We want them to continue to do this. I think it's notable that we have increase the regulations just now. So it's important for us to recognize the time spent on these renewals and the energy spent on processing all of this. So that is where the fees are going, and that's very important. So I appreciate that, and with that, my second stands.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Fox. Councilmember House.
Thank you, Your Honor. Something else I just want to echo as well is that this will not trade the 50% trade-in area. The percentage is not changing whatsoever. It is staying 50%. It has been that since 1998 and will continue to stay that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember House. All right. All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. That motion prevails. Kelly, thank you. Thank you to Emily and all the other staff that have worked so very hard on this for a couple years. So thank you. With that, we have a strategic plan quarterly report. Dan, you may share with us what's going on with our strategic plan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you recall, and also obviously for benefit for those out in TV land, Back in September, the council adopted a new strategic plan intended to guide our priorities for the next couple of years, 24 and forward into potentially as far as 27. Behind the scenes, city staff, we are using software platform Microsoft Project to track progress, and I think that will, as you can see in the report, help with some communication about progress towards the initiatives. It also helps us internally to make sure that we're staying on top of it throughout the year. We do expect to, as we've done in the past couple of years, continue providing a quarterly report, and this is our first one. It's the end of the fourth quarter. And hope for it to be clear, concise, readable, understandable, not overly burdensome for somebody to have a feel for how things are going and where we're at or what's coming up. And want to point out a couple of the items in there, not delve into all the specifics, but a couple of them. Particularly seeing progress this last quarter in looking at potential alternate revenue sources that the city might undertake and help out our budget and keep burden off of our taxes. We are also taking some, some significant steps towards updating and augmenting our staff training, particularly putting in place some new mandatory training for all employees, as well as some specialized training for all of our supervisory employees, which was one of the initiatives, and strides on in continuing to improve our communications plan. So there's certainly progress notable in the last quarter. I also want to point that the process overall, and whether it's using the software platform, Microsoft Project, whether it's some of the format for reporting to council and the public, it's a bit of a learning process. We definitely took a different approach to how we communicated it from our last strategic plan. Some of the percents, I scratch my head going, really? Is that what it is? It's because it's counting steps, but some steps are bigger than others. So I think we'll continue to see some refinement as we learn how to better use the software. I think we'll also, and this is really with council, we'll have some refinement of the initiatives themselves. I'm proud of the work that staff and council did last summer developing these, but I think that some of them, as we're trying to work with them, staff's at least going, what's exactly meant by this? Maybe we need to talk this through a little bit more. So the consequences sounded good in that first workshop, but as we try to implement them, or as we're setting ourselves up to implement them, need some other direction from council with that. So it is a learning process. To be determined a specific date, but we are planning a city council workshop probably in April so that we can delve into the specific initiatives and some of those refinements more deeply. And that timing also sets it up so that it is ahead of our budgeting process for 2025. With that, I can certainly take some questions if you have any on the reporting format or potentially some of the specific initiatives. But really, we are committed to progressing towards the initiatives and keeping those in front of council and the public on a regular basis. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Council, any questions? Okay, Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. You know, I agree that there seems to be a lack of information. It's, very, very brief, what's being provided in this report. And so it makes it difficult to gauge, what exactly has been going on. And so I I've made this suggestion, in the past, is that, periodically, like perhaps quarterly, like a section of this things that we had as desired outcomes, and then this is our key outcome indicators, and, we're moving, and so that is a little bit more of a living, breathing document, because this is really brief information, and that it's hard to gate. I agree with whoever on this staff have provided you that feedback, that it's very brief, and so it's hard to really, get to the core of really what is happening. And, the devil, I always like to say the devil's in the detail. And there is very little detail here, so, but otherwise, yeah, thanks for all the great work and energy. I know that it's hard to do reporting, to keep it fresh, and it's time consuming, so I can appreciate that as well. And so thanks for all that you're doing. We do appreciate it. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Councilmember Fox.
Thank you, Dan. This is excellent. Just based on the notes from the admin committee meeting last week, I like the idea of more emphasis on communication. I like the pulse survey idea for our community members to see what is important for them and how we can move forward with that strategically as leaders. And then I also believe the workshop/retreat would keep this kind of relevant and keep the details flowing. So I want to echo Councilmember Fulch's point. So, but truly, thank you for keeping our priorities a priority.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. Councilmember Liefeld.
Thanks, John. I just want to briefly add to that, when we met for the administration committee and discussed this, the important piece was, if we're going to ask these questions of the community, what are we doing with it, right? We want to make sure that we're listening and that we're using it. So that was the big takeaway, and we're seeing that in this. You're not seeing a lot of meat and potatoes here, right? So what we're saying is, going forward, how are we using that data? Right? We want to make sure that residents know when they take this survey that it had some impact.
It has meaning.
It has some meaning. So just so that people, as Dan referred to it in TV land, understand that was the focus, is making sure that we're using this and that it's being brought back to us, right? Whether it's through committee or through full council, through a workshop, whatever it is, that we're having an opportunity to review what's being said. So thanks, Dan. Excellent job. You hit it right on the head for what we talked about during admin committee. So I look forward to what this looks like when the next survey comes around. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. Dan, did you want to say a few words?
Just a brief clarification. I heard the reference to pulse survey and the community survey here. Obviously, they're all related, and I think they tie closely to a couple of the initiatives in the strategic plan about communication and community engagement. But the survey, and it's going to be kicking off, I think, in mid-March, so very soon, is a little bit different than the strategic plan that's reported here. They work well together, they complement each other, but just for clarification, it took a little bit of a left turn in the conversation here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. All right. Accepted. Good enough. No motion on that. Any announcements from council? Oh. Did you get a shock?
My button.
Oh.
I'm so
Councilmember
sorry.
Fox.
I just got
bill
so
you.
excited. I wanted to make sure the community knew about the Frozen Mulligan event hosted by the Hastings Downtown Business Association. It will be February 17th. It's a Saturday. It's a free 9-hole mini putt course through the downtown businesses. So please come on down. You can find more information on Facebook. I'm going to try and fix
Jen.
this.
I have a few announcements. The Hastings Chamber of Commerce will host the annual State of the Community with a presentation by the city and the school district. This is this Wednesday, February 7th. the Hastings Rivertown Lions Club is hosting a super breakfast on Saturday, February 11th at the Resurrection Methodist Church. And the breakfast is fee with donations, with all proceeds being donated to the health and wellness programs of our fire department. Thank you to the Lions for their support. It's actually the wrong date. It's February 25th.
24.
Saturday, the 24th of February. Okay, yes. Well, there is a birthday coming up to later the end of this month, or a couple weeks, to Councilmember Liefeld. We wish her a happy birthday on the 18th, I believe it is. So, city offices will be closed Monday, February 19th, in observance of President's Day. Experience snowshoeing on Sunday, February 18th at JC Park. A park naturalist will lead participation through floodplains, forest, and prairie. Snowshoes and instructions provided, pre-registration required on the city website. Thank you for our partner, Dakota County Parks. If there is no snow, we will have a guided February 8th, 6 p.m., Hedra. Monday, February 12th, the Utilities Committee of Council meeting is canceled, but there is a Operations Committee at 7 p.m. Wednesday, the 14th, 6 p.m., Arts and Culture Commission. Thursday, February 15th, 6:30. Council workshop, and this will be on our legislative priorities, and 7 p.m. council meeting. Again, we will have a Tuesday meeting instead of a Monday meeting on February 20th instead of the 19th, observing the holiday. With that, I would accept a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Lawrence and Councilmember Pemble, no discussion. All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails, and we are adjourned.